The Congress officially kicked off its campaign for the 2019 elections in Gujarat with a meet of the Congress Workers' Committee. Speeches took place from Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi. Now, while the Congress president spoke about issues like farm distress and unemployment, he also said no sacrifice was too great to defeat the ideology of the BJP and RSS. But the question really is the Congress willing and able to make these sacrifices that Rahul Gandhi talks about? The party's inability to form alliances, even so close to the polls, suggest otherwise. Has the Congress squandered the gains made after winning 3 Hindi heartland states in December last year? And is there a clear plan in place to challenge the BJP and Narendra Modi? To speak on this, I'm joined today by Neelanjan Sircar, a senior visiting fellow at the Center for Policy Research, Aditi Phadnis, who's political editor at the Business Standard, and senior journalist and commentator Madhavan Narayanan joins us as well. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for speaking with us here on Primetime Debate today. Aditi, let me begin by asking you what you made of the CWC meet in Gujarat today. We heard some speeches, but isn't the question still, very clear and present that does the Congress seem like it has a plan just about 10 weeks from the big election day?
Well, I think it has a plan, and the plan seems to be quite clear. The plan is to appeal to those who the Congress feels have been sidelined, have been left out of development. You must agree that there are objective problems that the Indian economy is facing, and the Congress, like any other opposition, is trying to raise those issues. We've seen the figures for industrial output today. They are very, very low. We've seen figures for unemployment, although the government has not given its official sanction to it. Anecdotal evidence also suggests that there is quite a large scale unemployment. So these are objective problems that people have to come to grips with in their everyday life, and the Congress is addressing those kinds of problems. Interestingly, in today's CWC meeting, apart from the Congress President Rahul Gandhi, very few people spoke on the issue of alleged corruption in the Rafale deal. So that suggests that what people have suspected, that the Rafale theme has not really got as much traction as the Congress President would like among ordinary people. So I just thought that's an interesting thing that we should flag.
No, in fact, that's what I was coming to next, because this Rafale sort of obsession, quote unquote, of Rahul Gandhi's, and now's the time to question whether it's worked or not. Let me come to Madhavan Narayanan. Aditi outlined the key issues that people are facing. Is the Congress talking about them? Is the Congress highlighting them enough? Is the Congress telling people there is an alternative? Because that's what you'd expect to see from the largest opposition party so close to the elections, isn't it?
I think the Congress is raising the right issues, but it is not capturing the imagination of the people sitting where I am. But I do see the morale of the Congress is quite high. I heard Priyanka speak to a huge rally. I saw that thing. And Rahul Gandhi has been quite confident, although a little shrill for the past few months. And therefore, as Aditi said, Rafale is probably not being stressed upon in rural rallies because it is a very urban, middle class, chattering class issue. On the other hand, everything from unemployment to farmers' distress is something touching somewhere. But we are interestingly in an election in which, in terms of mind share, atmospherics, and a bit of a charisma, the BJP's campaign is louder. So I was going to ask myself, what does the Congress know that I don't, or we don't? And my own guess would be that there is a lot of distress or unhappiness in general that Achhe Din haven't arrived, and that's what the Congress is trying to bank on. But having said that, I must say it still lacks the cohesiveness that one would expect, because you need something more than just general talk about the Congress being a traditional party of love and not hatred, and that there are problems that ordinary people are facing, because The alternative BJP party narrative is that you haven't done anything for 70 years, which is actually technically not true. But it's also a fact that there is a millennial set of voters. Millions of them who have not even seen, forget about the independence movement, they haven't even seen the economic reform happen. And therefore, for them, it's a blank slate. And as far as I know, taking aside issues like unemployment and jobs, and demonetization, the younger generation doesn't have much of a connect with the Congress. So we'll have to wait and see. But I don't see any killer app, as they say in technology, yet.
I like that that idea. Neelanjan, why don't you weigh in on this? A couple of pressure points for the Congress right now. Madhavan spoke about Priyanka Gandhi. She spoke today, big rally. But, she's supposed to be the ace card. Have we seen enough of it? Will we see more? How much of a difference is this going to make?
So look, when we talk about the Congress's chances, I think we need to sort of think about, we like the rhetoric of a national party, but both for the BJP and for the Congress, regional factors matter a lot. And so there are a certain set of states in which there are direct BJP-Congress fights, and there are another set of states where the BJP is largely fighting with regional actors. So when the Congress is trying to craft a message, it's actually not crafting a message for Tamil Nadu or West Bengal or these places. Those are not places that it's competing directly with the BJP. In the Hindi heartland states, the states that we've recently seen, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Gujarat, these are places where the BJP and the Congress go head to head, and places where the BJP basically got the better of the Congress consistently in 2014. So when we think about trump cards the Congress has, we need to sort of think about what is likely to resonate with voters in this geography within India. I haven't seen anything like that from the Congress yet. But that being said, the very structural factors that exist in the economy, with lack of jobs, difficulties coming from demonetization and GST, there are a set of structural factors that have been handed to the Congress.
Yeah.
And in some sense, it may not need these kinds of charismatic trump cards if they're able to sort of stay on message and wean away some of the vote in these places that the BJP effectively swept. Just to sort of very briefly outline that, the four states I just named, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Chhattisgarh, there are 91 Lok Sabha seats in these constituencies. The BJP won 88 of them. 30% of their seats came from just these four states, which are direct BJP-Congress competitions. And so if the Congress just weans away some of the vote, it doesn't need to sweep these states. It doesn't even need to win a majority of the seats. If it just does some damage to the BJP's electoral prospects are really in trouble.
Yeah, but are they doing enough to do this damage? Now, we've all outlined the issues that exist today. Is it enough merely that there are problems that voters have? And does that mean that all of these voters were upset with the BJP's track record on any one of these issues will naturally vote for the Congress? Is that an assumption that's being made? And let me come to Madhavan on that, because then comes the question of alliances. Where are the alliances? Why are there still no alliances? Is the Congress just hoping that they become the default choice?
In fact, I call it the nucleus problem. In fact, I wrote a piece today. I said that the Congress seems to have a 133-year-old ego, which basically means that it is no longer the nucleus that it thought it was, but it is showing the attitude of one, a bit like a Maharaja in 1947, when you can't think of shedding your own privileges. Actually, the scene is much more tough for Congress than it appears, because I was just looking at the election outcomes of 2004 and 9, in which the UPA actually won. And if you really look at the heat map of those elections, you will find that the Congress did not do as well as it appeared after Dr. Manmohan Singh came to power. What happened was that the Congress learned the fine art of being UPA, as in the Congress was at the center, but a huge amount of the stuff was about coalition building, putting up with parties, talking to smaller parties, keeping them happy. Of course, it peaked in the 2G scam when you know that the DMK was at the heart of the 2G scam. and the Congress was willing to lump it. And that is where probably Congress's chances lie better. But I don't see enough of that evidence, especially in Delhi. If you look at what happened, 7 seats in a current parliament where the Congress can hope to form a coalition is something that they haven't even bothered to talk to Aam Aadmi Party, and as far as I know. And therefore, yes, I agree that in the backdrop with the what you would call the tailwinds of the MP, Chhattisgarh, and Rajasthan elections, the Congress might like the idea of a binary anti-incumbency factor where the BJP will, suffer because Congress is there. But this country has about 30 states of various shapes and sizes, and Congress will have to go every inch, and I don't see enough of that yet.
Yeah, Aditi, let me come to you on that.
Smaller parties need to be talked to. Yeah.
So, okay, even if one is being generous and says there is a plan in the workings, but maybe we haven't seen it yet, do you think there's enough time? Do you think more would have been expected, especially when jobs and rural distress has been such an issue? Let me come back to Balakot and Pulwama, and how the Congress just seemed dumbstruck in the wake of those developments, just didn't know where to head.
Well, the Congress behaved like an opposition and backed Pulwama and Balakot because it had no option. It couldn't have questioned the attack. It couldn't have questioned the antecedents of the government, and it would have looked very bad if it had criticized the way the government has deployed the forces. So that, I'm afraid, is something that came as a bolt from the blue for the party. But other than that, I mean, it's caught in between a rock and a hard place. You've got this party which other alliance partners do not want to touch happily, because I mean, today BSP has said that they don't want to have any truck with the Congress anywhere in India. So a partner who wants to do alliances, but the alliance partners don't want it, and they would rather fight it alone. All this, is a kind of a very strong buffer against which the Congress, like a ocean, is hitting angrily, and it's not able to direct its energy in the way that it should be able to do. So it is keeping the option of the alliance open, but making sure that its own party growth is not stunted by alliance partners.
So I come back to the beginning of this show where Rahul Gandhi has been quoted as saying that we're willing to make whatever sacrifice it takes. Neelanjan, do they seem like they're willing to make whatever sacrifice it takes? There's a tweet from Yashwant Sinha that I just want to pull up, where he points out that the BJP is willing to give up seats even in Jharkhand, where they have sitting MPs, but the Congress just is not willing to budge. Delhi is one example. They've not tied up anything in Maharashtra yet. Karnataka is still hanging fire. Not too clear what's happening in West Bengal. Is it overconfidence that finally everything will work out? Is it a plan for the future beyond 2019 to grow the party in places where they have been hammered down over the years? What is the plan?
So look, the game of alliances for the Congress is complicated. First of all, it has its history. It doesn't want to feel like a junior partner in any alliance. That is true. But I think the other thing is that we have to sort of think about when alliances are beneficial. So in UP, for instance, recently we saw an alliance between SP and Congress that didn't work very well in the last state election. Alliances work when at the constituency level, the vote is being split multiple ways. So parties joining together and joining forces helps. So in the case of UP, SP and BSP joining together are helpful. In other contexts, you have a situation where there may be multiple parties competing. Let's take Madhya Pradesh. There's an area in which BSP is quite powerful. But BSP and Congress are very rarely fighting directly head to head. Right? BSP might be fighting against BJP and Congress might be fighting against BJP. And at any constituency level, there are only two parties that are sort of at the, getting a large amount of the vote share. There, an alliance doesn't really benefit any party. So I think when we look at the game, we sort of wonder, why isn't Congress forming a lot of these alliances? It's not obvious that it would be beneficial other than in a small number of states. The one obvious one that needs to be formed for the Congress is the one in Karnataka, because JDS and Congress were actually cutting into each other's vote shares vis-a-vis the BJP. In terms of trying hard enough, I agree with Aditi here, that you have to also see enough interest from the alliance partner. And the alliance partners have a strange game as well. A lot of these alliance partners are interested in ultimately demolishing the Congress. If we think about Trinamool Congress, for instance, in West Bengal, the end game for Trinamool is to make sure that Congress is a non-factor. So Congress has to think very carefully about whether it wants to ally with a party like that. If the same kind of results can be achieved without allying with such a party, then perhaps it makes sense for the Congress, right? Parties still do look out for their own survival.
Madhavan, you spoke about the alliance in Delhi, and I think there's been 1, 2, 3 reiterations now from the Congress that they will have no truck with Aam Aadmi Party, even if it means, an advantage to the BJP. The same goes for Uttar Pradesh, where it's not too clear what, the impact of Congress fighting all seats and then Priyanka Gandhi will have on the SP-BSP versus BJP alliance. Do you think that this will give an advantage to the BJP in the larger picture, this lack of alliances, even if it means well for the Congress in the short to medium term?
In Delhi, it's a most resounding yes. The Aam Aadmi Party has become quite popular thanks to good work done in the field of education and health, and there's a certain energy and activism that's visible. So my gut feel is that the Congress is even in danger of becoming a number 3 party across Delhi, and if that is the case, then it is imperative that the Aam Aadmi Party and Congress come together if the BJP is not to have an advantage, but that is clearly not the case. But UP is different. I've already written a piece for Quint once about how Priyanka's being made General Secretary of East UP is of special significance, because the East UP is a bit of a blue ocean, as they say in business. It's a virgin territory by UP standards, because the Western UP is dominated by Jat politics. Central UP has Yadavs and Dalits are everywhere. But East UP has what you would call the lower backwards. There is a Nishad party, and there are some other parties which are also part of the BJP coalition. So there's a lot of matchmaking to be done. And I have a feeling that closer to the elections, Priyanka, she's already tied up with a minor dal, I can't even recall honestly. But it's very important to understand that in the caste hierarchical metrics of UP, these parties in Eastern UP will play a role, and the Congress probably still has a trump card or 2 up its sleeves as far as East UP is concerned. But that is not going to give a critical mass across the state or even the country. So they have to first defend their own home pocket boroughs in Amethi and Raebareli. And therefore, this is, if you consider the ballast that the Congress displays in saying so worried about BJP and Narendra Modi, proportionate to that, the Congress doesn't seem to be showing sufficient momentum in alliance building. So now we'll have to go state by state, but as Aditi rightly pointed out, the BSP has preempted Congress across the country, which basically means that even in Madhya Pradesh, where Bahujan Samaj Party does have some votes, if Congress was really keen about it, it would have gone and made sure there is no room for defeat. If you recall, the Madhya Pradesh election saw Congress getting a lower vote share than BJP in the assembly. And therefore, Congress has to go that extra mile, and I don't see that. I don't see that at all.
Okay, let's look at the big ticket ideas coming from the Congress. And Amit Jain, who's watching the show right now, has put up an interesting question where he's saying, let's talk about the minimum income guarantee scheme. And is it implementable? What have we heard on that? And that was the big ticket idea, really, coming at a time which would goes to some extent to answer the questions about what are you going to do about, joblessness and rural distress and other issues like that. Aditi, let me come to you. We heard last that details of the minimum income guarantee scheme will be in the manifesto. Is that the next big move from the Congress that we'll hear about?
Yeah, Mr. Chidambaram today said that he's got 174 suggestions for the manifesto, and that this scheme will be rolled out. And Priyanka Gandhi today even gave a new acronym for it. She called it Nyay, Nyuntam Aay Yojana, Nyay, which means justice. So it's a very evocative acronym. And but it is just a scheme. Congress has not even been able to roll it out in the states where it's in power. So I mean, we really will people vote on the basis of something that that is a vague promise, a pie in the sky, or will they vote for something that they see is tangible before them? This is a big question, and I don't know the answer to that, but it's possible that people feel that they are so down and out, there is so much unemployment, there is so much farm distress, and the money for the schemes that the central government in power right now has not been able to deliver to the right bank accounts. If that is the case, then certainly this will have some traction. People will just get irritated and say, forget it, the central government makes all these promises, not able to keep them. So let me vote for a party that is at least, giving me something if it comes to power.
Okay. Neelanjan, let's get a broad picture, sort of a roundup from you. We've talked about a number of issues. We've talked about lack of alliances. We've talked about, whether there are concrete alternatives that the Congress is presenting right now. Let's also add to the mix the fact that the BJP is, on a boost post the Balakot strikes and the terror attacks in Pulwama, because national security has become a huge issue, and they're going to the people and saying that, look, we have action that you can see. Will the Congress have enough chance to counter this effectively in the days to come, or at this point it's seeming like pretty much a sealed deal?
So sealed deal, there's no sealed deal in Indian politics. Yeah. So, I think that we can rule out. But, here's one interesting piece of evidence with respect to the post-Pulwama Balakot airstrikes. If we look at the 1999 national elections, post-Kargil war, right, and that's some of the election results that we saw were a direct result of the Kargil war victory for India. We see that actually the BJP gained significantly in areas where it was competing against Congress, but it didn't do so against regional party actors. And that has something to do with the fact that Congress and BJP compete on national narratives, whereas when the BJP has to compete against a regional party, that's not always the case. You're fighting a different kind of battle. Add to that the Congress has a structural problem when it comes to messaging with the population, which is that its ground level cadre is significantly weaker than that of BJP or that of regional parties. So that last mile that goes to communicating your case or communicating your arguments to the voters, the Congress is structurally a bit weaker than the other parties. And so that fundamentally informs the way in which it's able to communicate with the voter. So yes, the BJP is on a boost, and based on historical evidence, it will be a boost against the Congress where there is a BJP-Congress fight, right? How does Congress counter that? Well, I think in some sense, it's exactly what every one of the panelists has said. Congress needs to be able to shift the focus from national security to economic issues. This time, which is not the case in 1999, voters have a fairly clear division between the BJP being seen as performing very well on national security and performing very poorly on the economy. And if the Congress can shift focus to the latter, then it has a very good chance of doing a lot of damage to the BJP and helping form government. If not, it's in trouble.
So how could that happen? Let me get Madhavan, Narayanan and Aditi on this. Madhavan first. How does that happen? So does that mean sacrificing, and I'm going back to what Rahul Gandhi said today, sacrificing some issues for the time being like Rafale? And keeping a laser focus on jobs. Even the whole Masood Azhar comeback seems to be too little too late. Everyone knows how Masood Azhar, got to Pakistan, but to wake up on it about 10 days later, I mean, does it mean that sacrifice some of these other issues and focus more on jobs, on rural distress, on GST's implementation and issues like that?
Yeah, I think let me divide that into three compartments. The jobs part, jobs and distress and unemployment and GST and demonetization is one box. The sacrifice is another box. And this Masood Azhar and the rhetoric over national security and tutu meme is a third box. The point is the Congress is firing on all its cylinders. There's no doubt about it. And Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka are quite inspired in that. But the fact is that they know that this national security rhetoric is a bit of a delayed offensive in which they don't own the narrative the way Modi does. So that's only oh, by the way kind of a thing they're doing for media consumption. The sacrifice part rings out hollow because the Congress has, since the independence movement, it has steadily eroded in terms of the idealist fire it carries. Although I can see a lot of new entrants to the Congress from the urban middle class who are actually quite idealist. But the average Congress worker is not as motivated as the RSS BJP worker. And Rahul Gandhi's call for sacrifice is well accepted, but essentially it is just a statement. It doesn't seem to have a certain energy that it needs. So that brings us to the third question of the jobs and rural distress and GST and demonetization kind of narrative. Within that, I'm expecting the manifesto to contain some solid promises to fill the vacuum created by the expectations linked to the distress. And one point I'd like to point out is the fiscal deficit of India is quite comfortable. This is no time to look at what the World Bank or Wall Street will be saying. At 3.5%, fiscal deficit is pretty good in terms of, because inflation right now, as we speak, retail inflation is under 3%. We are talking about a 4 to 6% band is what the RBI and the government talk about. So therefore, on the wholesale or whatever. But in general, there is leg room to play shorts. And if the Madhya Pradesh elections are any indication, the Congress makes big promises, arrives like a cowboy shooting in the air right on the first day and signs those expensive papers. To hell with naysaying economists and populist bashers.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of economic muscle left in the Congress, and they will fire. And I'm expecting, yesterday Sanjay Jha, the Congress spokesperson, was on TV saying that they're really working hard on the manifesto by getting a lot of ground level feedback.
Yes.
So there is a very good backroom machinery in the Congress. You have people like Jairam Ramesh and Rajiv Gowda who are very, very savvy. And I expect them all to stitch together a very attractive manifesto. Okay. In fact, the Congress's killer app may be the manifesto, not so much Rahul Gandhi's.
That's interesting. You talk about manifestos. Just on Madhya Pradesh, just a small aside, signing the papers and then implementing and then knowing the economic impact is all at very different time lags. So we're already hearing about teething troubles in Madhya Pradesh as well, but that's another discussion, and what economic impact they'll have will have to be seen. It's interesting you talked about manifestos. Let me bring in Aditi here, because in the last few elections, we've seen how irrelevant, unfortunately, manifestos have become. There have been some elections where, the BJP has released manifestos just a day before voting. Manifestos have sort of lost their charm and relevance over the last few elections. I don't know how big the Congress manifesto will be. I want your comment on that and on the key issue of who they field. That will be the biggest thing to watch, isn't it? Considering the defections they're already facing in Gujarat and in Maharashtra.
Sure. Let's deal with the defection part first. Certainly, people will come and people will go. Sharad Pawar has declared that he won't contest the election at all, even though there was a big debate about, his family pressing him to not contest, and he saying that if I am required, I am ready to give my services, but please remember that I am getting on in years. I mean, defections are part of life. Some people have defected from the Congress. After all, Mr. Gubaya has defected. He's a sitting MP, Shiromani Akali Dal MP from Firozpur, and he has defected to the Congress. So these things happen. I don't think we should make too much of it. As far as manifestos go, I think in Chhattisgarh, we were all really surprised at the outcome and the huge difference between the Congress and the BJP. In the other two states, it was touch and go, but Chhattisgarh, the Congress won by a big majority. And possibly one of the reasons was that there was direct communication with people. The manifesto, as you know, was crowdsourced. And also when the Prime Minister went there and said that those who work for the Maoists are or insurgents, left-wing insurgents, are actually urban terrorists and they work in air-conditioned rooms, the people there saw that this was patently false. Anyone who has been to Chhattisgarh and who has seen Sudha Bhardwaj's work will know that Sudha Bhardwaj does not sit in air-conditioned rooms and she does not work out of, there's an organic linkage between her clients and her. And her clients are those who are victims of the police system. So people, I think, sensed that the Prime Minister was not in tune with what was the reality, and they voted for those who seemed to be more in tune with the reality. Okay. So I think manifestos have a purpose, they have a place, and particularly in areas where you can't do conventional campaigning, but even otherwise, I think they have a place, and they basically represent what the party stands for. So I wouldn't say that the BJP won its last election on the basis of its manifesto. No, that would be wrong. But certainly manifestos give you something to work with. They, particularly when you don't have that kind of a strong party apparatus, when you don't have people who are who can translate what the party stands for to you just before the voting.
Well, maybe if you're lacking a star campaigner like that, definitely. Neelanjan, you want to come in on the point of whether we've got more to see from the Congress and whether the manifesto will make a big difference?
So, I mean, as I said earlier, I think echoing what the other panelists are saying, that the manifesto in and of itself matters less than the ability to communicate with voters, right? And something like crowdsourcing the manifesto or whatever other techniques are there, the Congress needs to be able to create new ways of communicating with the voters because its cadre is so much weaker than that of the BJP and then even as compared to the regional parties. So just saying a bunch of policy aims that don't get directly communicated to voters, that don't get voters out to the polls, is likely to do very much. But if you make promises and you find ways of communicating that directly to voters or including voters in the process, then the manifesto may have an impact, right? But all of this is to say that I think we need to distinguish between the organizational aspects of communicating a manifesto from the ideas that are in the manifesto, and both parts matter.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much to all of you for joining us on this discussion. The Congress is being beaten down at this point. It seems like there is a lack of coherence or cohesion. Is there enough time to reverse that and put up a strong fight? We'll have to wait and watch.